Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another UFC fight prediction video. In this video, I'll be predicting the full card of fights for UFC 258 Usman versus Burns. So without further ado, let's get to our first fight on the card and our first fight on the prelims. So in our first fight, we have a bout in the women's flyweight division, Jillian Robertson versus Miranda Maverick. So look at this one, it's cut and dry for me. I'm not impressed with either of their striking. I think Jillian Robertson is the better striker. Miranda Maverick did land a nicely timed elbow, but was not impressed with her striking. But what I think this fight comes down is that both of these women are grappling. Even though we didn't really see grappling in like Maverick's debut, she is a solid grappler and she's a much better wrestler in my opinion. I think like jiu-jitsu wise, Robertson has the edge, but wrestling and top control and being able to neutralize the submission game, but Robertson, I think that Maverick has all those tools, and I think it has in the history, like historically and pattern-wise, Robertson, when she goes against a stronger or a person who can control her from that top position, she looks pretty much mediocre out there. I think that's what I don't think that's gonna be the case, but I think it's a competitive fight. But I think Miranda Maverick's aggression and top control, takedowns and top control is what's gonna lean the fight to her. I think it's a clear decision for Maverick, but still competitive nonetheless. So in this fight, I have Miranda Maverick via decision. Now to our next fight we have in the welterweight division, Gabriel Green versus Philip Rowe at the welterweight division, if I didn't already say it. So pretty interesting matchup right here. You got two solid fighters. You got Philip Rowe, who's making his debut in the UFC, coming off a Contender Series victory over Shabazi and like Leon Shabazian, not Edmund Shabazian, but Leon Shabazian, the other brother. And Gabriel Green already has beaten like Leon Shabazian outside the UFC, but and now he's 0-1 in the UFC, coming in and fighting Daniel Rodriguez. And yeah, now he's in the UFC 0-1 versus 0-0, who's going to get a win in the UFC in this fight. So you got Gabriel Green, who stands at 5'10". You got Philip Rowe, who I think is around 6'3". And he has an 80.5-inch reach to the 73-inch reach of Gabe Green. So Philip Rowe, a big important stat is that 7.5-inch reach advantage in Philip Rowe's side. And really look at Gabriel Green, I think he is a little more savvy out there, a little more experienced, and like he looks a little more comfortable out there. But I don't think he's that much better. I don't think he's better overall than Philip Rowe. I think overall Philip Rowe is better. Striking wise, I might lean to Green overall because his kicks and punches and like his full skill set on the feet. But grappling wise, I would say Rowe is like the better grappler in my opinion. Some people might say, oh, or at least I'm not gonna say he's the better grappler. I think as far as them going against each other in like an MMA match, maybe Perry BJ Green might have an edge, but mixing in that reach and having a deal with that reach and that length in the wrestling offense with the lack of defense, the lack of defensive wrestling on Green's side, I would lean to Rowe to be able to get the top position. I've seen him do some grappling competition. He looked very comfortable out there on the ground. He knows what he's doing. He started his base is actually grappling as well. So with that length, with that size, and having Green, who's a little bit sloppy and also has poor takedown defense, I feel like Rowe can make this a takedown fight. Or he uses his length to exploit Green on the feet. And Green is not the cleanest striker either. So, like, what I'm basically saying is like, the edges either way aren't the biggest, but the biggest thing in this fight are the differences in physiques or builds. And Rowe has that, like I said, 7.5-inch reach advantage. And he had like a 4-inch height advantage and a 7.5-inch reach advantage. And his box looks pretty clean. I just have worried, like, he kind of just keeps his hand a little bit low, worry about an overhand. But Green, like I said, not the cleanest striker anyway either. Solid striker, solid overall fighter, but definitely not the cleanest, like, oh, this guy's such a master craftsman or some super technician on the feet either, because he gets sloppy. He just, in my opinion, he got some power, but he's a high-paced, average fighter, in my opinion. Nothing super spectacular about him, but he will outwork you. Got heart, got chin, and will outwork you. He can knock you out, but he's not a guy that, like, some super heavy-handed or some super solid box or some solid Muay Thai, some solid karate, some solid this or that. In any area, he's not. I think grappling, Rowe can neutralize him, get the top position, exploit his poor takedown defense, and also I think he can exploit the reach advantage and land some clean strikes on Green. And when he starts to really let it go, I think it's going to be a bad night for Green, but I think this is a competitive fight, but I'm going to lean to Rowe to use his advantages and then land strikes from a distance, mix some takedowns, and control some top position and edge a decision over Green. So in this fight, I have Philip Rowe via decision. Now to our next fight we have in the featherweight division, Ricky Simon versus Brian Kelleher. So two veterans of the game. Both are well-rounded. I think Kelleher is definitely the better submission grappler. but I think Simone has the better positional grappling and the better wrestling. Boxing and striking wise, I would lean to Ricky Simone. Hits harder, better combinations, better reads. Defense just kind of lacks that time. That's about it. So that's why I feel like Ricky Simone will be the bigger, more powerful fighter. I feel like he can control whether the fight goes to the ground or not. And he also is very good at, defending submissions. It has underrated submission game as well. As we've seen against Borg. He didn't submit Borg, but he was able to bully Borg around, who's bullied around some pretty solid bantamweights. And yeah. So he was able to do that. So I'm impressed at what Ricky Simone did against Borg, given all that Borg has done. And some other fights. He fought Ronnie Yaya and some other good grapplers. And his submission skill, offense and defense, has always looked good. And also got that. He didn't tap Rob out, but he basically put him out at the bell. So yeah. Rick Simone's no slouch in the grappling. I think he's a stronger, more physical fighter. Heavier hands, better technique on the feet, and the ability to keep this fight on the feet. And if it does go to the ground, has the ability to grapple with Kelleher. He's not going to be afraid to do that if he needs to do that. But on the feet, I feel like he's faster, stronger, and better striker. I think this is a competitive fight that goes to a decision, but it goes Ricky Simone's way. So in this fight, I have Ricky Simone via decision. Now to our next fight, we have in the women's strawweight division, Poliana Viana versus Mallory Martin. So Mallory Martin, she got her first win in her last fight, but she did have a lot of issues with Hannah Cyphers earlier on. But when she was able to get it to the ground, she was back to her bread and butter and was able to tap out Hannah Cyphers. So good performance, or at least a good enough performance to get a victory finally in the UFC. You got Poliana Viana, who kind of disappoints you a lot of times. So I feel like on the feet, Poliana Viana can definitely win this one and should win this one on the feet. But Poliana Viana has not really been proven to be a winner, and she allows herself to get taken down like more than she should, and holds positions more than she should, and just shows lack of the will to push, this lack of effort, you can almost say, or presence of mind. That's probably the better thing is. And I feel like Martin has the wrestling, has the grappling to take her down and pretty much stall her out on the ground, land some ground. I don't think she'll go out there and submit Viana. I think Viana has good submission defense and has solid grappling as well. I think she's a more well-rounded fighter, but fight IQ plays a lot of it, and fight awareness. You're getting taken down, you allow yourself to be on your back too long, and you're just allowing people to just win by being on top, holding the top position, then it's going to happen to you again and again. And I feel like that's going to happen in this one. I think, like I said, I think Viana is the better overall fighter, as far as all the skill sets combined. She's a more rounded out fighter. That's the better way to say it. But I think it's going to allow Mallory Martin, the more one-dimensional fighter. I'm not saying Martin is one-dimensional, but she is the more one-dimensional fighter, to be able to use her bread and butter, get some takedowns, control her, and take her to a decision. So in this one, I have Mallory Martin via decision. Now to our next fight, we have in the welterweight division, Belal Muhammad versus Diego Lima. So this is a good fight right here, but predicted it before. But I see this one. I think Lima, he's really coming to his own, started to get his groove on. His striking started coming well. His takedown defense getting better. And his cage awareness getting better. And he's really starting to get in the zone. But I think Belal Muhammad just a bad style matchup for him in a way. Cause I feel like Muhammad he has good head movement, good footwork. He mixes up. He's starting to put in stance switching into his game. And he's becoming even more elusive. And on top of all that movement, he might not have a super iron chin, but it's hard to put him away, and he has heart, and he is able to recover very well and adjust in fights. And that's a hard guy to deal with. And it's also, he's the more well-rounded fighter, at least as far as implementing his tools. I think he's definitely the better wrestler, better grappler in this one. And I feel like he can mix it up on the feet, and probably if he wanted to outbeat Lima in a striking matchup or beat him into a decision. And Muhammad has always been a smarter fighter, so I feel like he's going to mix up his grappling and his striking to draw off Lima. Draw off Lima's striking with his wrestling and draw off Lima's wrestling defense with his striking. So just mix it up, being a more well-rounded fighter and fighting a smart fight, get some takedowns, getting some cage control, landing the cleaner strikes, and beating Lima in a very smart technical decision. So in this fight, I have Belal Muhammad via decision. Now to our next fight, we have in our co-prelim headliner in the middleweight division, Rodolfo Viera versus Anthony Hernandez. So Hernandez is the more well-rounded fighter in this one. I think he is the younger fighter as well, a little bit longer as well. But grappling defense hasn't, at least in one fight, did not look the best. And it wasn't like he fought against such a super stellar grappler or such a stud out there. And his opponent wasn't bad, definitely wasn't bad either, but to get submitted that way didn't look the best. And really what you're leaning on Hernandez, and I think his one win in the actual UFC was via submission grappling. Now you're going against a world-class grappler. Like I said, and also a lot of people say Viera striking isn't the best, but Viera has some power. He has, he has some decent grasp of the fundamentals, and he has power and explosion. He's very physical. And really all he needs to do is get you to respect his power for a little bit, or even for a split second to get it to the ground. And I think if he can get it, I think he can and will get it to the ground. And when he gets to the ground, I think he'll make short work of Hernandez and tap him out. But like I said, Hernandez is the more well-rounded fighter, but I think Viera has enough tools on his feet to present a threat that will open up the takedown. And once he gets that takedown, he's going to tap Hernandez out, and it's going to be in the first round. So in this fight, I had Rodolfo Viera via first round submission. Now to our prelim headliner we have in the lightweight division, Bobby Green versus Jim Miller. So these two were supposed to fight back in 2014. It almost seemed like 2014 was that long ago, but looking at the years, that's like 6 years ago. Well, 7 years ago now. That's crazy. But Bobby Green versus Jim Miller. So look at this fight right here. I think Jim Miller is a stud. He's been around the game a while, and at one time he was on like that 8 or 9 fight, well, like some long winning streak. It was like 8 fight winning streak. I don't know why I'm going back there, but all I'm trying to say is that Jim Miller's a stud. Underrated on the feet. He can kill you on the feet. Definitely got a lot of different ways he can tap you out. He's a true veteran, true jack of all trades, and truly dangerous in all areas. Very high level BJJ and a very high level fighter, and a fighter to be respected and a fighter to be feared. But I see this one. I think Jim Miller's wrestling defense, offense, and defense is pretty solid as well. But and like I said, submission, grappling, offensive and defensively is solid. Overall game, offensive and defensively solid. But against Bobby Green, I think Bobby Green is the longer, slicker boxer, slicker striker. Will be faster. Will be less predictable as always. He can be a little bit, not timid at times, but he can be a little bit, I won't say gun shy. I would say his output doesn't be it. Not because he'd be scared or anything. It'd be like he'd be too focused on trying to pick his shots, and that can be an issue on Bobby Green's side. But where I'm really gonna go with this one, I feel like Bobby Green can beat Jim Miller to the punch, beat him to the kick, can stick and move around him, and he can definitely stop Jim Miller's takedowns. And if he does get taken down by Jim Miller, Bobby Green is very good at defense, has very good solid submission defense. He is good at scrambles and can get back to his feet and continue to outwork Jim Miller in this one. Do I think he knocked Jim Miller out? No, but I think he boxes Jim Miller up to a decision. It might still be end up in one of these close fights just because of how Bobby Green fights, but stat-wise, he's definitely going to outstrike Bobby Green. I mean, outstrike Jim Miller. And even in his losses, it seems like he has always outstruck his opponents unless he got stopped. So I predict him to outstrike Jim Miller for sure. They might rob him on a decision again, but I predict him to get his hand raised, predict him to outstrike Jim Miller, predict him to be able to maybe get some takedowns if he wants in this fight, mixes them in. For the most part, the story going to be him being able to stuff the takedowns or scramble and get back to his feet, maybe even reverse position. But the story really going to be just his work on the feet, outpointing, outstriking, making Jim Miller miss, and then tagging him. So in this fight, I have Bobby Green via decision. Now to our main card, not our main event, our main card. So in our first fight on the main card, we have in the middleweight division, Mikey Pitolo versus Julian Marquez. So you got a fight that looking like a barn burner right here, because Julian Marquez, I know he got a well-rounded skill set, but he chooses to go out there and just participate in the slugfest. Then his last fight, he got upset, like a minor upset to like Alex DeChirio or DeChirico. I'm messing his name up, and that was like 2019, so he was off the show for a good while. I think he got injured and somewhere in between that because he was supposed to come back and fight Sarpar Sarpabek, but got injured, so that fight fell off. But either way, it's been a long while since he fought. But again, like I said, I don't know if he's going to revise his skill set or his game after that loss, and it's been some time, so I don't know what he's been working on. But I'm kind of expecting him to still be kind of the same guy that relies on that chin, power, and just participate in these type of brawl type fights, like a semi-technical brawl. Not a technical brawl, definitely not a technical brawl, but not technically a sloppy brawl either, but somewhere in the middle. But it's definitely not a technical brawl because he could defend a lot more better than he does and relies too much on his chin. But it's definitely not to the point that it's just a sloppy bar fight level slugfest. But either way, definitely could use a lot more defense than what he does. But going against Mike Pitolo, another fighter with heavy hands, got those coconut bombs as he likes to say. But been struggling to get some wins. Got submitted in his last fight. Then I think the fight prior to that, he got outstruck by Impa Kasangane. So I'm really gonna lean to Marquez in the one. Like when I see a guy that's kind of struggling to get wins, you kind of lean to the other guy. And Pitolo is actually the smaller fighter. He actually has a 2-inch reach advantage over Marquez, but Marquez has like a 4-inch height advantage. Marquez is 6'2" versus the 5'10" Pitolo. And I think Marquez is the bigger fighter. Pitolo, I think, debuted as a welterweight and came up, I guess, because he felt like it would be better for him. But I think size is going to be a factor. And being a bigger fighter, he's going to have more weight on his punches. And he's going to be able to take the punches better. And I feel like it's going to be a tight fight. But Marquez is going to be able to wear the shots better and give the shots better. Pitolo's speed can have effect, but I think the weight and the power in that bar, like, you know, in that inside fight is going to favor Marquez, especially since he's been in plenty of these fights. And I feel like he's going to wear it better, give it better, and be able to out-grit Pitolo in a very hard-fought, bar-burning fight. So in this fight, I have Julian Marquez via decision. Now to our next fight we have in the bantamweight division, Pedro Munhoz versus Jimmy Rivera. So these two fought some years back. It was a split decision back then. It was a very highly, you know, competitive fight, back and forth. A lot of bombs thrown, a lot of elbows, knees, hooks, uppercuts, everything in that fight. But Rivera came on top. It was a close fight for sure, but I feel like Rivera won clear. And even looking back at the stats, Rivera at least outstruck, at least in the first two rounds, Munhoz by at least 10 to 20 strikes in both the first and second. The third round was about like a 5-strike differential still in Rivera's favor. So in every single round, he outstruck Munhoz. So I feel like going into this one, we're not even really looking back at the past, but we're looking at the future. I don't think much has necessarily changed. As far as they both made more money since then, both got more wins since then, and both, you know, done a lot since then. And right now, Munhoz I think is actually ranked higher than Rivera, but I see this one. I think Rivera still has the faster hands, still packs more power, still the better inside fighter. I think Munhoz actually has more tools, like he's got like those sharp elbows, sharp knees, and stuff like that. But Rivera still the better inside fighter. You might have more tools, but he's the better inside fighter. He's the better wrestler as far as definitely offensively, defensively. So he can control where the fight goes to the ground or not. He's faster, more physical, hits harder, hits faster, and has, like I said, better inside tools. Also some underrated kicks. Munhoz has some solid kicks as well. But again, I think it's going to come down to the inside game. And Rivera is the better inside fighter. And is going to be able to simply just do his thing inside. Be able to stuff takedowns when needed. Maybe mixing takedowns when needed. Good submission defense skills. Like I said, Rivera's a real well-rounded fighter. He got good wrestling, good BJJ, offense and defense. Like I said, Munhoz is definitely the better BJJ practitioner, but Rivera has all the skills to neutralize a lot of what Munhoz wants to do with his submission. Just don't want to get caught up in that guillotine. Outside of that, he's solid. And I'm not saying he got submitted by guillotines in the past. I'm just saying that's how good Munhoz's guillotine is, just so don't even mess with that. But like I said, inside, faster hands, heavier hands. You're going to beat Munhoz to the punch and land the heavier shots. Rip him to the body. Maybe throw a leg kick in there just to throw him off his stance some. And then do what he does. Crash to the inside and work in and be a good inside fighter. And probably a similar fight outcome to the first fight. So in this fight, I have Jimmy Rivera via decision. Now to our next fight, we have in the middleweight division, Kelvin Gastelum versus Ian Heinisch. So look at this one. Heinisch is a fighter I would say label is he's a pace fighter or he's a workman fighter. That's what I'm looking for. I mean, even though in that one fight he did against Marchart, he went out and got a nice finish, and in that first round against Darren Brunson, he was looking like a different fighter. But like he knocked out Marchart in the first round, almost knocked out Brunson in the first round, and Brunson turned around and put out the decision over him in the second and third. But outside of that, Heinisch is his story or his pattern was kind of get grinded up in the first round. Then his opponent started to get tired after, scrambling with him and having to deal with him and him weathering the storm. And then he just started walking him down. He just gets stronger as the fight goes on. And where I'm going with that, all I'm saying is Gastelum is the better striker. Heinisch probably is the better wrestler, but he's not to the extent where he can really put on a wrestling clinic against Gastelum or a grappling clinic against Gastelum. I feel like Gastelum should be able to get back to his feet and continue to pick him apart on the feet. Faster hands, the more technical striker, the heavier handed striker. The better, well, they both got some chins on them. Heinisch literally half his face is his chin. I don't think he's been knocked out, but either way, two chinny fighters with some solid iron chins. But Gastelum been in there with the better guys and is the better striker, the fastest striker, and should be able to keep this fight on the feet for the most part and to have no real issues with anything Heinisch presents in the grappling aspect, and to be able to, like I said, beat him to the punch, beat him to the kick, outstrike him, outwork him, and beat him to a decision. I don't think he stops Heinisch. Like I said, Heinisch, half his face is literally his chin, so I don't think he knocks Heinisch out, but I do think he beats him to a decision. But I think Heinisch might try to rally late, but the 3-round fight, the first 2 rounds going to be enough for Gastelum to get the decision. So in this fight, I have Kelvin Gastelum via decision. Now to our co-main event, we have in the women's flyweight division, Maycee Barber versus Alexa Grasso. So you got 2 young fighters. One's like, what, 27, the other's like 22. And Barber's 22, Alexa Grasso is 27. I think they're both like the same height. Grasso has a 1-inch reach advantage. So not a whole lot of edge for either woman as far as, tail to take. But we're looking at Barber. She's not an offensive grappler. When we look at who Grasso has lost in the UFC, she lost to Carla Esparza and Tatiana Suarez, 2 of the best wrestlers in the division, with Tatiana Suarez by far being the best wrestler in the division. And by far the best women's wrestler in MMA right now in Tatiana Suarez. And Carla Esparza being like top 5 in all of MMA and number 2 in this division as far as wrestling. So she only lost to the 2 best wrestlers in this division. And Barber, offensive wrestling and defensive wrestling, isn't really the best. She kind of comes out, she's surprisingly physical, surprisingly strong, got some heavy hands, and like if she can touch you, she can push your lights out or knock you off your cells, but isn't the cleanest art, the most technical striker. But by a woman's standards, she is pretty up there. But Grasso, I think Grasso's boxing is better, footwork is better, kicks are better, much more fluid, much more light on her feet, and much smoother with her, technical wise, like from her But yeah, basically she's this smoother striker. She's lighter, quicker, more versatile, more technical. And Barber is not really going to be that amazing wrestler offensively or defensively. So this fight should mostly play on the feet. I feel like Barber's going to try to crowd her, but Grasso should be able to create space, angle off, and continue to be the faster, fleeter-footed striker and just pick apart or land. I want to say pick apart, but land, control the striking tempo and control the striking exchanges and land the more significant strikes, the cleaner significant strikes, and be in control of this fight from roughly start to finish, or at least from about 80% of this fight, and beat Barber on a decision. So in this fight, I have Alexa Grasso via decision. Now to our main event, we have in the welterweight division, Kamaru Usman versus Gilbert Burns for the undisputed welterweight title. Edit that out in your mind. It's for the welterweight title. You got Kamaru Usman, the undisputed, well, not undefeated, but undefeated in UFC welterweight champion Kamaru Usman. And versus his longtime teammate in Gilbert Burns. These two are basically like training partners. Been now for like a year or so, or maybe a year or more. They have been training together because they were supposed to fight, and then COVID happened to Burns. And yeah, you don't need the backstory. You just need how this fight gonna go. So Usman versus Burns. How I see this one right here. I feel like at first I was thinking Kobe Covington was the last hard fight that Usman would have in his career, or well, not in his career, but at least for the next three years or so, and he'd be able to get a good reign on and probably be, and like, well, I wouldn't say probably, would definitely be at least the second best welterweight of all time behind GSP, at least. Because he already has like tied GSP for the longest, most consecutive wins in the division. And he already on a pretty good streak. I think we're like 2-3 title defenses now. So 2-3 years could definitely add more to that. But I forgot all about Burns, because as a matter of fact, Burns was a lightweight at one point, so I wasn't even really factoring. Now him making it to the title fight with his striking, I think he's technically the better striker. Grappling wise, one of the better grapplers in the sport. So Usman, a wrestler, has to take it to the ground against such a high level grappling, especially a guy that knows him with that power and that speed. He could be a big issue for Usman. I think he will be an issue for Usman. Am I saying he will beat Usman? I'm not saying that. I'm picking Usman to win this one. But Burns will definitely be a big threat. And maybe after Burns, Usman will have that clear shot. But even after that, the welterweight division is a division that's still growing and still adding new people. And like, let me just even throw one name out. Deshaun Brady, that's the guy that's I see coming up the division. Like, he's gonna be there probably within the next 2-3 years, or yeah, within the next 2-3 years. So that whole thing where I thought Kobe Covington was his last real big test before he really just went on an easy coast and pack up wins. Here comes more people. So, but yeah, Usman versus Burns. How to see this one is, like I said, Burns wrestling is very underrated. Grappling, not overrated at all. Striking power, definitely dangerous. He definitely the more technical striker. But Usman, no slouch in striking. Wrestling, no slouch in wrestling. And cardio has that for days, and definitely has that in edge. I think heart-wise, much bigger heart than Burns. Much bigger gas tank than Burns. Physically, the bigger, stronger fighter. I know Burns is trying to bulk up and do stuff, so maybe that might change. But still, Usman, the bigger fighter, better cardio by far, better heart by far. He can, like he said, he can dig deeper, and he's mentally tougher than everyone in this division, and probably even in the sport. Usman's a very mentally strong fighter, even though he does allow people to insult him, sometimes get to him. But in that cage, Colby Covington's trash talk did not deter him at all. A close fight with Colby Covington going into those last rounds did not deter him all, and he was able to put Colby Covington out of there. So mentally tough, especially when in the cage. So the mental was there, the heart's there, the cardio's there. I feel like Burns can definitely start in with some submissions. But I think the X factor for Usman is going to be the body shots, knowing that he has the bigger gas tank. And if he can take anything out of the cells of Burns, he can definitely enforce that cardio, enforce that pace on Burns even more. On Burns' side, the X factor for him is he can land the uppercut as Usman dips down a lot. And then from there, that can open up a lot of Burns striking and other things. But what I feel is that competitive fight, I feel like Usman's going to be able to address the uppercut on Burns' side as he saw in the Covington fight. I feel like going to rip it to, Burns to the body a lot, like slipping some kicks there, especially the hook to the body that he was able to land on Covington a lot, and really take Burns to the later rounds and outwork him. Then start to work on takedowns, ground and pound. I don't think he put Burns out of there, but I think he takes Burns into the late round, drowns him, outworks him, and beats him to a decision. So in this one, I have Kamaru Usman via decision. And that concludes my fight predictions for the full card of UFC 258, Usman versus Burns. And as always, thanks for watching.